personalities of yesteryear now. I believe the 11th of Av marked the Hilula of a famous, let's just say, a builder of Eretz Yisrael, the land of Eretz Yisrael, Yosef Eliyahu Shloush. I think he was born in English 1870 in Jaffa, and he passed away on the 11th of Av, that was the 23rd of July, in the year 1934. He was about 64 years of age at the time he passed away. He was one of the founders of Tel Aviv, and he was a merchant. He was a man that was of many means, respectively. And we spoke about him actually quite recently. We did record a video about his father not so long ago, just I believe in the last 48 hours. He was also an entrepreneur, an industrialist. Also, let's explore a few of the highlights of the famous, let's say, rabbi's life over here. Okay, I'm not sure actually if it was a rabbi or not. There were some sources that called him a chacham, some sources not, but be it as may, he really made his impact on Eretz Yisrael with regards to helping build it way before the state had actually been formed. Now, he was born in Jaffa. This was, I believe, in the year 1870. His father was Rabbi Aaron Shloush, who was one of the leaders of the Sephardic community in the city of Jaffa, one of the founders of Neve Tzedek. He was a goldsmith himself, a money changer, and a land dealer who encouraged, let's just say, Jewish settlement outside the city walls, and the head of, he had many, his ties into many different activities, let's just say, to promote Yishuv Eretz Yisrael and building Eretz Yisrael. And it's actually interesting. Yosef Eliyahu Shloush, as a child, was educated in Talmud Torah at the Tiferet Yisrael school in Beirut. Very interesting enough. So he was in Lebanon. Remember, it's not that much of a far distance over there. I believe he actually got married. He was 17 years of age, and that would actually, at that point in time, I think he was studying. And while he got married, he would now go on to work in commerce. I think this would have been, and then come with the early 1890s, together with his older brother, someone named Avraham Chaim Shloush. He founded the Shloush brothers. It was a building materials business, and would form later into a factory for prefabricated building projects, which would be under that specific name, I believe. His business was in the field of construction, and his father's land business pushed Yosef Eliyahu Shloush to engage in practical construction. He also began to work as a contractor, and in this framework he built various different buildings in the north of Jaffa and in Tel Aviv. Primarily, I believe, the famous Feingold houses, somewhere that this was actually from Shlomo Feingold, who himself happened to be an entrepreneur, a publisher, a journalist. He was active in Eretz Yisrael in the late 19th century and decades into the 20th century. He was, I think actually, he studied in the famous Volozhin Yeshiva himself, and he became connected very much to various Zionist affiliations, let's just say, when he was over there and when he came to Eretz Yisrael. I think this was in the Yafe Nof neighborhood in Manshia, if I'm not mistaken. This is a mixed neighborhood in north of Jaffa, which was, this itself was, I think, partly destroyed during the War of Independence and almost completely destroyed over many years. And I think there was, I think, some sort of rebuilding of the area, but I'm not too sure all the details in regards to that. Now, he would also work, I think, at that stage in time, in a girls' school, and I think there was an Alliance school network system, one that was established in the Neve Tzedek area, respectively. Kol Israel Chaverim, you could also call it. This was in Neve Tzedek. I think 32 of the first houses of the Uzat Bayit and Herzliya Hebrew Gymnasium building, he would actually be working. Just to mention about it, the famous Herzliya Hebrew Gymnasium, I think his first Hebrew high school, and one of the most, let's say, famous educational institutions in Israel. I think it was actually established in Jaffa in 1905. Now I think it has actually moved to Herzl Street in Tel Aviv. In 1956, I think the gymnasium building itself was demolished to make up a specific tower over there, if I'm not mistaken. The Ahuzat Bayit was a Jewish neighborhood found outside the walls of Jaffa in 1909. And I think it's one of the foundings of the Tel Aviv city in itself. He was basically very much connected to all of this. At the same time, he continued along with partnership with other people with regards to building the land. I think the Gulat Karka, if it's a Zionistic movement, let's just say, where the huge, vast amounts of purchase of lands in Israel by various different Jewish individuals, and very interesting in itself. It was around Tel Aviv and throughout the country. In 1910, he completed the construction of the famous Yosef Eliyahu Shloush house. This is a place where he lived in. I think it's famous house at the moment, and much can be said within regards to it. I think it's in the Rehov Herzl, if I'm not mistaken. It's located on Rothschild Boulevard and Herzl Street in Tel Aviv. It was obviously built, I think, gradually between 1910 to 1930. After he passed away, I think it was used for commercial and office spaces. The house retained unique characteristics of building styles that were common in Tel Aviv in its early days, despite its location in the heart of Little Tel Aviv, which became the business center of Tel Aviv. And it was not demolished in favor of modern construction like many other buildings, I think, that was around it, and is recognized as a site for preservation by the Council of Preservation of Heritage Sites, which was included, I think, among the Tel Aviv municipalities' building preservation programs. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the Hillel Shloush house is actually a building that's adjacent to it, respectively. That's something we can also talk about. I think also this was built in the 1930s, and I think it's a private house of the architect Hillel Shloush, who was the son of Yosef Eliyahu Shloush, who we're speaking about today. And more can be said. There's a huge background, there's a lot documented within regards to different floors of the house and how it was used for commercial use and so on and so forth. You can see a lot of pictures online within regards to this famous house. Okay, so I think beyond his private business, Yosef Eliyahu Shloush devoted a significant portion of his time to public affairs. Primarily, I think his concern was the development of the two cities in which he lived, Jaffa and Tel Aviv, and for welfare of the residents. Together with his wife's name was Rabbinit Farha. I'm not sure if he himself was rabbi. So her name was Farha Simcha, I think, for the Moyal family, respectively, and he was among one of the founders of Tel Aviv. After World War I, he was a member of the first city council. In his activities in this field, he initiated and conceived many ideas for the improvement and perfection of the city, which was implemented eventually by others. That he spoke Arabic, it was the common language among him, and it served him really to help with regards to mediation and bring Jewish and Arab residents of Tel Aviv and Jaffa closer together. He would try to do that. There was friendly relations, I think, he had with Arab public leaders. He could listen to them, they would come to him many times, and there would be a lot of conversation between him and them. He really got on with other people. He was often sent, I believe, by the Tel Aviv Municipal Committee to speak to the Arabs of Jaffa and to reach compromises with them on issues linking the two cities. For example, he succeeded convincing the members of the Jaffa municipality to cancel their firm opposition to connecting Jaffa to the electricity grid established by Pinchas Rothenberg, for example. He himself happened to be a Jewish Russian revolutionary and a member of the Russian Social Revolutionary Party, I believe. Very interesting enough. He was also the founder of the Palestine Electric Company, which will later on become the Israel Electric Company. And there was difficulties, I think, within regards to that. And following, there was the Balfour Declaration. There was riots, I think, at later stage of time. So he would try to be careful. Yosef Eliyahu did many things during the First World War to cope with various decrees imposed by the Ottoman government. The chief among them, I think, there was a expulsion decree upon the city. His main concern was to provide for the essential needs of the people that were cut off from their homes and sources of livelihood. In the upheavals, he and his family, I think, with dozens of other exiles, arrived in Petach Tikva and would then go from there to other areas, including the village of Jamal, if I'm not mistaken, and the Jamal village. Very interesting enough. And a large community of exiles, I think, developed in the village. I think there was 152 people and lived there for about 6 months. I think sadly his mother passed away during that point in time, and he purchased a grave plot for her in the village, buried her, and placed a tombstone on it. During, let's say, deportation, he was visited by the famous Meir Dizengoff at the time, who at the time was the head of the Tel Aviv, various importance over there, and Meir Dizengoff will actually speak about his visit and chronicle it over. Just interesting enough, Meir Dizengoff was the first mayor of Tel Aviv. I think he served from between the years 1921 to 1925, and from 1928 until his death in 1936. Much is documented in his writings. Now, I think it was after World War I, he and his friend Meir Dizengoff conceived the idea of establishing a port at the mouth, let's just say, of the Yarkon River, and even purchased extensive areas in the area for this purpose. After the British, let's say, opposed this idea, the idea came up again in the 1930s, and for this purpose, the family purchased additional areas from the village of Sheikh Munis, if I'm not mistaken. This is an Arab village on the central coastal plain of the Judean coast plain. The brothers Yosef Eliyahu and Yaakov tried to convince Arabs of Jaffa to establish a joint port for the two cities and established of Tel Aviv Riviera, although the outbreak of the Arab revolt disrupted their plan. This was, I think, a revolt that took place in the Arabian Peninsula. This was heavily documented. In his last years, he gradually moved away from public activity. He was active in various organizations and associations, such as the World Sephardic Association in Tel Aviv. He wrote and published articles in Hebrew and Arabic press, in which he tried to voice a different, distinctly non-partisan voice on issues of various different matters. I think he passed away in Tel Aviv in the summer of 1934, and it was about 3 months after his wife had passed away. Let's explore some in regards to his family. I believe him and his wife, they had 7 children, including Moshe, who married Rachel, and I think from the Madnitsky family, if I'm not mistaken. I think later on get married to Nina Berlin, the daughter of Eliyahu Berlin. Eliyahu Berlin was one of the leaders of the settlement, and he was a member of the Assembly of Representatives of the National Committee and Provisional State Council, if I'm not mistaken, and one of the signatories of the Declaration of Dependence. This was. So that's interesting. Now, another one, Meir, married, I think, Schovit Sakharov, the daughter of the Sakharov family, respectively. And I think another one of his sons was Avner, who married Miriam, the daughter of a carpenter, famous one, Joseph Gorodnitsk. And Sadok got married to Rose Applebaum, who was a daughter of the agronomist. And another one of his daughters, Judith, was a wife of Hiram Heinrich Cohen. And Yoram was another one of his sons, who would marry Eliza, the daughter of Shimon Kaplan. So it's very interesting. His children would get married, vast majority of the children get married to Ashkenazim. So I don't know how common that was at that point in time, where Sephardi and Ashkenazi would get married to each other, but in his case, it was a high percentage of people. I think come 1931, he would publish his autobiographical book, which contained descriptions of episodes in his life, starting from days when he was a child in Jaffa until other events that actually take place. I think most notably the events, the atrocities of 1929, the Hebron massacre, and much more. So he would write about it. He would speak in detail within regards to various other grappling important issues that there was at that stage in time. The book, I think, was first published in the family edition in the 1930s. It was reprinted on various occasions and by descendants, I think, of Yosef Eliyahu Shloush in the 1970s. A revised and annotated edition was published in 2005. Edited by Or Alexandrovich and was published, I think, and very interesting. That was, I think, something was published in Brandeis University Press in 2025. That's very, very recently. So we can say more within regards to him. He was a famous man of his time. He was from Jaffa, which was part of Ottoman Syria. He was the son of Aaron Shloush, who was one of the prominent figures, let's say, of the local Maghrabi Jewish community, obviously a goldsmith, money changer, land dealer, educated in Jewish Talmud Torah, Tiferet Israel, the Jewish school in Beirut. We spoke about how when he was 17, he would go into commercial activity and business over there, and was very, very influential, hugely influential, especially the Alliance School in the Beit Tzedek, the Bella Vista neighborhood, I think, the Feingold House is very much connected to him, and the Herzliya Hebrew Gymnasium, and was one of the founders of Tel Aviv, and was one of the, in the 1920s, a member of the Jaffa City's Council in of itself. We spoke about how fluent he was in Arabic, and how that would help him with interacting with the other people of other faiths also during that point in time. And we spoke about how he ended. I think he passed away on 23rd of July 1934, and naturally that was 11th of Av, just 2 days after Tisha B'Av. And the city of Tel Aviv named the street after him, Yosef Eliyahu Street, which is located near Frederick Arman Auditorium in Heichel HaTarbut, in the heart of the city, respectively. So there is much actually chronicled about him, especially on the internet, which I would very, very much recommend everyone to read about. He was a famous man of his time. Now, A lot of articles are written within regards to him, and lots of information, which I recommend everyone to look into and learn more and grasp more about the famous man. I think in 1934, the Hayomi website actually addresses him as a Chacham over there in very great details. And we can say a few more within regards to him. I think a man in 1917, during the First World War, he was a military governor of Palestine. Ahmed Kemal Pasha signed an expulsion order that was enforced on the Jews of Tel Aviv and Jaffa. About 5,000 city Jews were forced to exile from the area, including Mr. Yosef Eliyahu Shloush, who migrated to the Arab village of Jamal. So that was a reason for that. And we see that the Hebrew city of Tel Aviv was very much helped to be built because of his actions and his father's actions, respectively. Let's explore a bit of tidbits in regards to his Torah work, which was actually published. I think one of the teachings, I think it's called Parshat Chayei, which was printed between 1870 to 1970. I think from page 328 he writes, "Melamed shevi'ot ma'avnei Yerushalayim binyan b'tei knesot b'chutz haaretz." This is one of the teachings he would actually chronicle over, just using notes from a Hayomi website over here. Another teaching which he gives, "Melamed hitkaravot shel shechinaynu hi chova rishona shel yaldei hamakom." This is one of the things important is getting close to Hashem. "Melamed she'anu hamakuyim ro'im bi'adut gam et halumiyot." Very interesting. This is featured in pages 366 to 367. This was printed way later on in Tel Aviv in the year 2005. So very, very interesting over here. We're speaking a special edition here about one of the founders and builders of Tel Aviv from the Shloush family in of itself. So I recommend everyone to learn more within regards to him and learn more within regards to the famous Jewish personality of yesteryear here on this series. We're a community here. We are learning about famous, especially rabbis of yesteryear, and we try and include every single day a clip with famous Jewish personality that's really shaping up the Jewish world in current state, and we do a huge amount in this channel. So please, everyone, subscribe to the channel. We're nearing a staggering 7,000 subscribers, which I never would have thought we would have got to. So that's a phenomenal achievement. He was speaking about today, a person that was very well grounded in Tel Aviv and a builder of, and one that really advocated for Yeshuv Eretz Yisrael, which how important actually that happens to be. So friends, I'm going to leave it here. Wishing you all a good night. Take care. Thanks everyone for watching. Appreciate it.